There are some truths that the soul understands long before the mind can grasp them. One of these truths is that awakened souls, those who carry a vibration of light, intuition, and higher consciousness, are often born into families that challenge them. Families that are not always harmonious, loving, or understanding. It may seem cruel or unfair, but there is a hidden divine design at work. The soul, in its infinite wisdom, chooses the environment that will awaken it most fully. You see, the purpose of life is not comfort or ease, but growth, awakening, and the realization of our highest potential. And often, the very crucible that seems harsh or unkind is the tool through which the soul learns to recognize its own power. When a soul enters a family where there is chaos, fear, control, or neglect, it is given the opportunity to rise above the limitations of the human mind, to claim its inherent authority, and to see life through the eyes of spirit rather than circumstance. A toxic family is not a punishment, it is a classroom. It is a mirror reflecting back to the soul the illusions, limitations, and karmic patterns that must be released. Here, the awakened child learns the sacred lesson of self-reliance, discernment, and detachment. In the presence of criticism, manipulation, or emotional turbulence, the soul awakens to its own voice, learning that peace is an internal state, not something granted by others. When you are born into such a family, you may feel misunderstood, isolated, or even rejected. Yet these very feelings are signposts pointing toward your spiritual growth. Every harsh word, every act of control, every moment of emotional imbalance is an invitation to claim your divine inheritance. You are being taught to anchor yourself in truth, to rely upon your inner guidance, and to recognize that your worth is inherent, untouchable, and independent of external approval. Awakened souls have a heightened sensitivity to energy. They feel the moods, tensions, and unspoken conflicts of those around them more deeply than most. This sensitivity can feel like a burden in a toxic environment, yet it is also the very gift that allows the soul to see through illusion, to perceive hidden motives, and to rise above reaction. It is through this heightened awareness that the awakened soul discovers the power of love, forgiveness, and understanding, not as a means of condoning toxicity, but as a means of liberating the self. The secret lies in the recognition that the family you are born into is not the final authority on your life. You may be shaped by early experiences, but you are not defined by them. The awakened soul learns to move with clarity, to set boundaries, and to create an inner sanctuary where peace, joy, and abundance flow freely. You do not need the approval or affection of those who fail to see your light, for the source of validation resides within you, eternal and unwavering. It is also true that the awakened soul often carries the mission of healing, not just themselves, but through example, they illuminate the path for others. By witnessing the way one transcends family dysfunction with grace, integrity, and love, others are inspired to find their own strength. This is the sacred law of demonstration. The soul that walks through fire emerges not burned, but transformed, radiating a light that cannot be dimmed. Do not mistake suffering for punishment. The soul has chosen the challenges of a toxic family not as a penalty, but as a training ground for mastery. Each moment of tension is a divine cue to practice patience, forgiveness, and non-resistance. Each act of unkindness is a reflection of lessons yet to be released, both within yourself and within the collective energy of your family line. And each moment of clarity, love, and insight is a confirmation that your spiritual awakening is not only possible, it is inevitable. As you grow into awareness, you will understand that no family structure, no inherited pattern, no external limitation can bind the soul that knows its own divinity. The awakened soul discovers that the ultimate family, the eternal support, comes from alignment with spirit itself. This realization frees you from victimhood, from resentment, and from the endless cycles of blame that bind so many. You step into sovereignty, knowing that you are a radiant spark of life, untouched by judgment, criticism, or negativity. And so, If you find yourself in a family that seems challenging, unkind, or toxic, rejoice in the opportunity that has been given to you. Recognize that you were sent into this environment not by chance, but by divine orchestration. You are here to rise above limitation, to shine your light, and to demonstrate the power of the soul that refuses to be confined. Every trial is a teacher, every difficulty a portal to freedom, and every act of love, especially self-love, is a declaration of your awakening. The awakened soul knows that true power is not in reaction, but in conscious choice. It is not in seeking approval, but in embracing truth. It is not in escaping challenge, but in transforming it. And it is through this transformation that the soul fulfills its destiny, not just in this lifetime, but across all lifetimes, radiating a light that cannot be dimmed, a love that cannot be contained, and a wisdom that transforms darkness into illumination. Awakened souls are born into toxic families as a divine training ground for spiritual growth and self-mastery, a truth that is often misunderstood by the human mind but fully embraced by the soul. From the moment of birth, the awakened soul senses that it is different, that its consciousness resonates at a frequency higher than the patterns it finds surrounding it, and that the environment in which it has been placed is not arbitrary. Life itself is orchestrated with perfect intelligence, and the soul selects its circumstances, knowing that the challenges it will face will serve as catalysts for awakening, for expanding perception, and for refining character. Toxicity in the family is not a flaw in the cosmic plan, nor is it a punishment. Rather, it is a carefully chosen crucible, a furnace in which the soul's light is tested and strengthened. The child who grows in such an environment may experience confusion, pain, and a sense of isolation. Yet these very experiences are the instruments through which the soul begins to recognize its own power, its independence, and its inherent divinity. It is through these early trials that the awakened soul is called to rise above circumstance, to cultivate discernment, and to understand that true fulfillment is not dependent upon external approval, affection, or recognition. The family, with all its flaws and dysfunctions, becomes the mirror, reflecting back to the soul the limitations that exist not in the self but in others, and the soul learns to navigate life with wisdom, grace, and unwavering inner authority. When a soul enters a family where anger, control, fear, neglect, or emotional imbalance are present, it is provided with an environment that demands self-awareness, resilience, and courage. In the face of criticism or judgment, the awakened child is gently compelled to seek validation not from those around them but from within, to anchor their identity in truth rather than the opinions of others, and to develop an inner sanctuary of peace that cannot be disturbed by external turbulence. Each moment of disharmony, each encounter with negativity, serves as an opportunity for the soul to exercise spiritual discernment, to choose the higher path of love rather than reaction, and to cultivate the ability to remain centered even when surrounded by chaos. The awakened soul learns that the family is not the ultimate authority, and that life's conditions, no matter how uncomfortable, do not diminish the divine essence within. Instead, these conditions invite the soul to recognize the infinite reservoir of strength, clarity, and resilience that lies within, waiting to be expressed in full measure. One of the greatest lessons that arises from being born into a toxic family is the recognition that love, peace, and happiness are internal states, not external commodities. The awakened soul observes the dysfunction around it, feeling the tension and disharmony more acutely than most, and in doing so, is given the gift of heightened awareness. Sensitivity, once a burden, becomes a tool for spiritual discernment, allowing the soul to perceive energy, motives, and unspoken dynamics that others may overlook. This awareness, cultivated through exposure to toxicity, becomes the foundation of self-mastery, as the soul learns to navigate the world with intuition, wisdom, and an unshakable sense of inner alignment. Every moment of conflict, every act of emotional turbulence, becomes a lesson in maintaining integrity, setting boundaries, an understanding that the soul's value is not contingent upon the treatment it receives but is inherent, eternal, and untouched by circumstance. In this environment, the awakened soul discovers the principle of detachment, a sacred skill that enables one to rise above chaos without disengaging from life or losing compassion for others. Detachment is not indifference. It is the recognition that while one can participate in life and witness its challenges, one is not bound by the limitations or negativity of others. Toxic family members, whether through ignorance, fear, or unresolved pain, act as catalysts for the soul's development, revealing where attachment, expectation, or dependency would otherwise cloud perception and limit growth. The awakened soul learns to respond with clarity rather than react with emotion, to speak from truth rather than fear, and to uphold dignity in the face of adversity, thereby transforming difficulty into opportunity, resistance into strength, and judgment into understanding. Another critical aspect of this journey is the cultivation of self-reliance. When the external environment is inconsistent, harsh, or unsupportive, the soul is prompted to seek guidance from within, to trust intuition, and to develop the courage to make choices independently of others' influence. This self-reliance becomes a spiritual armor, protecting the soul from the destabilizing effects of criticism, manipulation, or control, and ensuring that the awakened individual remains aligned with higher purpose. In learning to rely upon inner wisdom, the soul discovers the joy of freedom, the empowerment of sovereignty, and the expansive potential of life lived in accordance with universal law rather than the constraints of human limitation. The awakened soul also gains the profound ability to transform pain into insight. Challenges presented by a toxic family are not wasted experiences. They are alchemical tools through which the soul refines its character, sharpens its discernment, and strengthens its capacity for love. In witnessing negativity, the soul is called to practice compassion, not in the sense of condoning harmful behavior, but in the sense of understanding the hidden causes and karmic patterns that drive it. This understanding liberates the soul from bitterness, resentment, and victimhood, allowing it to rise into a consciousness of higher truth, where the actions of others are seen as reflections of their own limitations rather than a measure of the soul's worth. Each encounter with toxicity becomes a sacred exercise in mastery, offering opportunities to cultivate patience, forgiveness, and unwavering alignment with inner truth, reinforcing the principle that no external force can diminish the soul that knows itself. Furthermore, being born into a challenging family allows the awakened soul to become a beacon for others. By navigating adversity with integrity, love, and conscious awareness, the individual demonstrates the power of spiritual sovereignty and inspires transformation in others, both within and beyond the family unit. The awakened soul shows that light is not extinguished by darkness, that love is not weakened by negativity, and that peace is not contingent upon the behavior of others. Through living examples, the soul illuminates the path for those who have yet to awaken, providing proof that mastery is possible even in the most difficult circumstances, and that spiritual growth is not delayed by external hardship, but often accelerated by it. The environment of a toxic family also teaches the awakened soul the power of choice. While circumstances may be challenging, the soul learns that every moment contains the potential to respond differently, to choose love over fear, to choose truth over illusion, and to choose empowerment over limitation. These choices accumulate, forming the foundation of character, integrity, and spiritual authority. The soul realizes that while it cannot control the actions of others, it can always govern its own response, and in doing so, it discovers a freedom that cannot be taken away. Each act of conscious choice strengthens the soul, reinforcing the understanding that the conditions of life, no matter how difficult, are merely tools in the hands of the awakened individual, ready to be shaped into opportunities for learning, expansion, and self-mastery. Ultimately, the awakened soul recognizes that the family into which it is born is only one layer of the larger spiritual plan. It is a temporary field in which lessons are given, awareness is expanded, and mastery is cultivated. The soul comes to see that true belonging, validation, and love are not dependent on external acceptance, but are found within, in alignment with universal law, divine intelligence, and the eternal source of life itself. Toxic family dynamics, once perceived as obstacles, are understood as deliberate invitations to awaken, to rise above limitation, and to claim the full expression of the soul's innate power, wisdom, and grace. Toxic family dynamics serve as mirrors, revealing illusions, karmic patterns, and lessons in self-reliance, discernment, and inner peace, offering the awakened soul an extraordinary opportunity to understand the deeper workings of life. From the earliest years, the soul is confronted with conditions that are reflections of unresolved energies, unconscious programming, and collective patterns carried through generations, and these conditions are never random but purposeful. The family, as the immediate environment, holds a concentrated field of energy where hidden truths, limiting beliefs, and emotional tendencies are magnified, providing the soul with an unparalleled classroom in which to observe, learn, and ultimately transcend. Each tension, misunderstanding, or conflict is a signal, a mirror reflecting the aspects of self that remain unexamined, unhealed, or bound by illusion. And the awakened soul quickly recognizes that the family is less a source of limitation than a projection of life's subtle teachings designed to awaken consciousness, to reveal hidden strengths, and to cultivate mastery over the inner state. The very presence of dysfunction, disharmony, or emotional turbulence serves as an instrument of clarity, showing the soul where attachment, expectation, or dependency has the potential to cloud perception, distort judgment, and obscure the light within. And through careful observation, reflection, and conscious response, the awakened individual begins to navigate life with wisdom, balance, and spiritual alignment. Each family interaction, no matter how challenging, is imbued with potential lessons that are both precise and transformative. When criticism, manipulation, neglect, or judgment arise, the awakened soul learns to see beyond the surface, to perceive the patterns of thought and emotion that generate these circumstances, and to understand the law of cause and effect as it operates not only in others, but in oneself. Toxicity is revealed to be a teacher, an energetic catalyst that highlights the contrast between the external world and the inner sanctuary of consciousness, reminding the soul that peace, joy, and fulfillment are not derived from circumstance, but from alignment with higher truth and divine intelligence. Through repeated encounters with challenging family dynamics, the soul gradually cultivates discernment, learning to recognize the intentions, fears, and limitations of others, while simultaneously developing the ability to remain rooted in integrity, truth, and unconditional self-respect. And this discernment becomes a cornerstone of spiritual empowerment, allowing the individual to navigate life with clarity, purpose, and a sense of sovereignty that is unshakable. The mirror of the family also reveals karmic patterns that extend across generations, providing the soul with the opportunity to break cycles that may have persisted for centuries. Dysfunction, repetition, and unresolved conflict are not accidents, but echoes of choices, beliefs, and unresolved energy that continue to manifest until consciousness intervenes. The awakened soul, by recognizing these patterns, is empowered to transform them, to release old energy, and to step into a new way of being that honors personal integrity and divine law. Every act of awareness, every moment of conscious choice, and every practice of forgiveness, understanding, or detachment becomes a tool for rewriting the script, for breaking free from inherited limitations, and for establishing a foundation of health, balance, and spiritual authority that cannot be shaken by external influence. The family, once viewed as restrictive or controlling, is understood as the crucible through which the soul learns to exercise freedom, responsibility, and alignment with universal truth. In addition to revealing karmic patterns, toxic family dynamics serve as a mirror for illusions held by the awakened soul itself. Many of the early beliefs formed within the family environment, whether regarding love, approval, self-worth, or the nature of relationships, are challenged by the presence of inconsistency, criticism, or neglect. The awakened soul is compelled to examine these beliefs, to discern what is truth and what is inherited limitation, and to release the illusions that obscure awareness of the soul's inherent power and divine nature. It is through confrontation with these illusions that the individual cultivates clarity, self-trust, and confidence. Learning to navigate life guided by intuition, inner knowing, and alignment with the higher self, rather than the expectations or judgments of others. Each reflection of toxicity becomes a teacher, highlighting where inner work is required, where boundaries must be strengthened, and where the soul can claim freedom from dependency, approval-seeking, or emotional entanglement. The process of learning self-reliance is one of the most vital gifts provided by the mirror of the family. In the presence of inconsistency, criticism, or emotional unavailability, the awakened soul discovers the importance of relying upon inner guidance, cultivating self-love, and creating a sanctuary of peace that cannot be disturbed by external chaos. Each act of reliance on inner wisdom reinforces the understanding that external circumstances are never the source of fulfillment, that the soul is its own authority, and that divine guidance is ever present when one turns inward for direction, clarity, and strength. Through this practice, the awakened soul develops the capacity to remain centered amidst conflict, to respond with intelligence rather than reaction, and to embody a presence of calm, love, and discernment that transforms challenging interactions into opportunities for growth, insight, and mastery. Discernment is further refined as the awakened soul learns to recognize the subtle energies and intentions of others. Toxic behavior, manipulation, or control can be read as lessons in perception, inviting the soul to observe without judgment, to respond without attachment, and to recognize the distinction between personal responsibility and the limitations of others. In this way, the family becomes a laboratory for the development of emotional intelligence, spiritual insight, and conscious choice, offering repeated opportunities to practice patience, understanding, and the ability to uphold integrity regardless of external conditions. Every interaction becomes a mirror, reflecting both the hidden truths of the family dynamic and the growth potential of the soul, demonstrating that mastery is not achieved through avoidance or denial, but through presence, awareness, and conscious engagement with reality as it is. Inner peace, cultivated in the midst of family dysfunction, emerges as one of the most profound gifts of this mirror. The awakened soul realizes that peace is not dependent upon harmony in external circumstances, but is a natural state of alignment with higher law, divine intelligence, and the eternal source of life. Toxic family dynamics reveal where attachment, expectation, or resistance create inner turbulence, providing the soul with opportunities to practice surrender, forgiveness, and the conscious choice to remain anchored in truth. Each instance of conflict, criticism, or emotional imbalance becomes a sacred invitation to step into the power of presence, to cultivate resilience, and to understand that the true measure of spiritual growth is the ability to maintain serenity and clarity regardless of outer circumstances. Ultimately, the awakened soul comes to understand that the mirror of the family serves a purpose far beyond the personal sphere. By observing, transforming, and transcending toxic dynamics, the individual demonstrates the potential of consciousness to rise above limitation, to illuminate hidden truths, and to embody the principles of divine law in practical, lived experience. Each act of awareness, each moment of self-mastery, and each expression of love, forgiveness, or detachment not only liberates the individual, but contributes to the healing of collective energy, showing that the work of awakening is both personal and universal, and that the family, though challenging, is an essential instrument in the manifestation of spiritual power, clarity, and sovereignty. True awakening comes from transcending external negativity, embracing inner sovereignty and transforming challenges into opportunities for love, wisdom, and empowerment. Revealing a path that is as profound as it is practical for those who are willing to see beyond the illusion of limitation. The awakened soul understands that the world is a reflection of consciousness and that the conditions one encounters, including the toxicity within a family, are not obstacles, but mirrors, designed to illuminate the soul's hidden strengths, to highlight areas of growth, and to invite the exercise of free will in alignment with divine law. Every negative energy, harsh word, or act of manipulation becomes a spiritual cue, directing the soul to rise above the vibration of fear, judgment, and limitation, and to cultivate an inner sanctuary of clarity, peace, and self-possession that cannot be disturbed by the outer world. In this way, external adversity is transformed into an instrument of empowerment, guiding the soul to recognize that true authority lies not in controlling circumstances, but in mastering the self, and that freedom is born not from the absence of difficulty, but from the conscious choice to respond with love, wisdom, and integrity, regardless of conditions. The first step in transcending external negativity is the recognition that the awakened soul is inherently sovereign. Sovereignty is the understanding that the source of authority, value, and validation resides within, that the divine spark of consciousness is untouched by criticism, misunderstanding, or emotional turbulence, and that no external force can diminish the inherent worth of the soul. Toxic families, with their patterns of control, judgment, or neglect, provide the perfect arena for practicing sovereignty, as the awakened individual is called to maintain clarity, assert boundaries, and align with truth, even when faced with opposition or misunderstanding. By embracing sovereignty, the soul learns that reactions to external negativity are optional, and that the power to choose response over reaction is the hallmark of spiritual mastery, teaching the individual to maintain equilibrium, confidence, and integrity in all circumstances. Sovereignty is further strengthened through the recognition that inner peace, joy, and love are not dependent on the behavior of others, but are natural expressions of alignment with divine consciousness, accessible at any moment through intention, focus, and faith in higher law. Embracing inner sovereignty also requires the cultivation of discernment, the ability to perceive the true nature of situations, energies, and intentions without being drawn into emotional reactivity. Toxic family dynamics, with their layers of confusion, projection, and unresolved karma, serve as a training ground for this skill, revealing where attachment, expectation, or fear would otherwise cloud perception and limit freedom. The awakened soul learns to observe without judgment, to respond with clarity, and to engage with life from a position of conscious choice rather than habitual reaction. Understanding that true power arises from presence, not from control, and from insight, not from conformity. Each interaction with toxicity becomes an opportunity to refine the capacity to see clearly, to act with integrity, and to remain aligned with higher truth, demonstrating that external conditions are merely tools through which consciousness may be exercised, expanded, and perfected. Transformation of challenges into opportunities is another essential aspect of true awakening. Every act of criticism, every moment of emotional turbulence, and every experience of limitation holds the potential for profound growth if met with awareness and intention. The awakened soul perceives difficulty as a teacher, as a mirror reflecting areas where courage, patience, understanding, or compassion can be applied, and as a doorway to mastery of both self and circumstance. Rather than perceiving toxic family dynamics as punitive, the soul understands that they are deliberately placed to accelerate growth, to reveal hidden strengths, and to provide repeated opportunities to exercise wisdom, self-discipline, and spiritual authority. Through conscious engagement with these challenges, the individual learns to transmute pain into insight, limitation into empowerment, and fear into love, discovering the truth that life's adversities are not hindrances but instruments of awakening. each experience designed to refine the soul and expand the consciousness in alignment with its highest potential. Love, in its highest expression, is central to this process. The awakened soul learns that love is not contingent upon the actions, approval, or recognition of others, but is an inner state, a conscious choice, and a reflection of divine law. In the face of toxicity, love becomes an act of mastery, not weakness, allowing the soul to respond with compassion, forgiveness, and understanding without compromising boundaries or self-respect. This form of love is transformative, dissolving the emotional charge of negative interactions and illuminating the path for both the self and others, creating an energetic field in which healing, clarity, and growth can occur. Love, when consciously applied, becomes a powerful tool of transformation, demonstrating that awakening is not only a personal journey, but also a contribution to the collective consciousness, showing that one's own mastery can elevate, inspire, and guide those around them without requiring dependence, compliance, or approval. Empowerment, closely linked to sovereignty and transformation, emerges as the awakened soul fully claims its divine authority. Empowerment is not the exertion of force over others, but the conscious alignment with truth, the mastery of thoughts and emotions, and the recognition that the soul has the inherent capacity to navigate life with wisdom, integrity, and clarity. Toxic family dynamics provide countless opportunities to exercise this empowerment, from establishing healthy boundaries to choosing responses aligned with higher principles, and in each instance, the soul reinforces its understanding that freedom is born from mastery, not from escape, and from alignment, not from avoidance. Through consistent practice, the individual discovers the depth of their own capabilities, the resilience of their spirit, and the unshakable stability of consciousness rooted in truth, demonstrating that external negativity can never extinguish the light of an awakened soul when it chooses to operate from sovereignty, wisdom, and love. The awakened soul also learns the subtle art of detachment, understanding that while engagement with life is necessary, emotional identification with toxic behavior or negative patterns is optional. Detachment is not separation from reality or withdrawal from life, but the conscious recognition that inner equilibrium, peace, and clarity are maintained through awareness and choice rather than through reaction to external events. Toxic family dynamics, by their very nature, provide frequent opportunities to practice detachment, to observe without absorbing, and to maintain a centered presence amidst chaos, allowing the soul to cultivate mastery over the mind and emotions, to act from principle rather than impulse, and to demonstrate that spiritual sovereignty is not theoretical but practical, operative, and transformative in everyday life. Ultimately, true awakening through the challenges of a toxic family is the full realization that the soul is untouchable, unlimited, and divinely guided. The awakened individual understands that each moment of adversity is a sacred opportunity to exercise sovereignty, discernment, love, and empowerment, and that the conditions of life, no matter how difficult, are but instruments for refining consciousness and manifesting higher purpose. Challenges are no longer perceived as burdens, but as allies in awakening, illuminating paths of growth, wisdom, and clarity, and providing repeated invitations to step into the power of presence, to claim inner authority, and to demonstrate that life, regardless of external circumstances, can be an expression of divine intelligence, love, and freedom.